Okay, well, the last item that I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight was the interesting news about the ratings for Rings of Power as people progress through it, or not, as the case may be, because, well, according to this report here,
well, can we brace the audience? Everyone's under the impression it's incredibly popular and well reviewed. We need to let them know that may not be the case. We may have discovered something else.
Prepare to have your expectations subverted. So, in the United States, at least, only 37% of viewers who started Rings of Power actually watched all 8 episodes through to completion, according to a new report from The Hollywood Reporter. The number was not shared directly from Amazon. I wonder why. But it came from sources within the organization. Overseas, the completion rate was slightly better at 45%, but less than half of all viewers worldwide were able to complete Amazon's Middle-earth adventure. That is awful, especially in North America. Barely a third of people got through to the end of that.
Man, as soon as you mentioned it, I started to feel, I'm not joking, I started to feel tired. And I think it just brought back the feeling of watching the movie. I'm watching the show. It made me tired. It was so boring.
Yeah.
I never would have finished it if I wasn't reviewing it. So
no, I agree.
No.
The only thing that was driving me on was sheer morbid curiosity about how bad it could get, and as it turned out, really bad. So yeah, I was surprised. It was impressive.
I mentioned this when this news was dropped on. I was on Real BBC talking about it, and I'll say it again here. I'm honestly kind of surprised the number's that high. I was like, really? That many people actually stick through it? I was like, okay, all right, yeah.
Compare it to Batwoman. Batwoman had 20 episodes and maintained 39.7% of its audience.
Wow.
20 compared to 8. I think when you put it in context with other shows, people are just like The Flash is awful. I'm still watching it because I'm going to see this thing through. I have spent so many hours of my life watching this crap. I'm going to make sure I see whatever this finale is. And I think a load of people are the same. They watch it on the side monitor. They're not really paying attention to it that much. And it couldn't even make 8 episodes. People just, I hate this. I'm over. And left.
I think this guy's right here. Like probably the bulk of that 37% were just YouTubers reviewing it.
I think Amazon thought that the viewership would be like the ship staring up at the sun, but in fact the viewership turned out to be like the stone that only looks downward.
How did you come up with something so poignant?
Boats are sinky because they look down into darkness.
Sinky.
Well, that's like a load of topics. Months have gone past since the show was out. If you made a video on it, it wouldn't do that well. Rings of Power, people still hate that. You make a video on it, they're still interested. They want to know about it. It's like people have hated that thing for months. Like, yes, I want to see it fail. And so I think you really touched a nerve. If you wanted to mess with any IP, you probably but this one, no, it really holds a lot of meaning for people. And so you can't just do what you did and expect to get away with it.
It did have a cultural impact, we can say that much. Just not quite the impact that Amazon hoped for.
Man, your show is so bad that people can't even stick around to hate watch you. That's
there's a fantastic quote for Jennifer Salke, though, who said, basically, I've never heard any negative reports like this internally, and I just thought, I wonder fucking why. Is it maybe because everyone's terrified to tell you how bad the show's actually been?
It was an interesting quote because she said, it doesn't reflect any conversations I'm having internally. And it's like, well, you control those conversations. And as we've already, people may not want to tell you that your stuff's awful, but from what they're telling what I want the backstage to that article, because the amount people were coming from other competitors to come and talk to THR about Rings of Power and Jennifer Salke. And it's like, she goes through life and everyone around her is like, this is awful. You're making the wrong decision. No one will tell her. But they'll go and tell a website about it and complain about it behind the scenes. That article is one of the most astonishing things I've seen because it is massive, and the entire thing is she was crap at this, crap at this, crap at this, crap at this, and I went from wondering how on earth did Rings of Power happen to how have you made a season 2 and still maintained your job when you're making this many terrible? Because anyone who doesn't know the beginning of my channel, essentially Wheel of Time was the big thing. That's the one I care about. And she was the one responsible for replacing, as far as I know,
she was responsible.
Conan, which would have been an amazing thing, but she thought it was too masculine, with Wheel of Time,
That's true, yeah.
which is already It's very mixed. Like, if you want sort of an equal show, Wheel of Time's about as much as you're going to get. And then the show came out, and it was just all biased. Like, this is just sort of feminist kind of stuff. And so they did that. She was responsible for that and destroyed the entire series. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm talking about TV for my series then. And so for this to come out and find out she's done everything else. What did he talk about? Air, she bought that for 165 million. It's come out that domestic was 3.2 million box office.
Ooh.
It's bad decision after bad decision with her.
The conversation she's having internally, that just could be paranoid schizophrenia, for all we know.
Yeah.
Well, she investigated her thoughts and found nothing wrong. It's like, yeah, I think everything's fine, so that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's a little bit of self-delusion, and yeah, man, like, surely from a PR standpoint, there's just no hiding it now. The fact that this show was just a massive failure. Everyone seemed to hate it, and I don't know how they can continue from here. Like, even the showrunners have tried to claim, like, oh yes, we're going to have more battles, and it's going to be more kinetic and more exciting than it was in this season. And they're missing the point. Like, the problem wasn't that we didn't have enough battles or that it wasn't enough exciting. It was just fundamentally garbage. It disrespected the lore. There was no characters worth caring about. It was just terribly written, terribly produced, terribly acted. It was a bad show. You don't come back from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that new Warner Brothers trilogy they're going to make, that is going to obliterate the Rings of Power. If they have that simultaneously, my God.
If they have the level of care that went into the Peter Jackson trilogy, sure, it can work. It's got to have the right people involved in it, though. And
it's going to be such an interesting litmus test for the message, like the idea of representing the world we live in today. The way they do it is going to be such an interesting litmus test for where we actually are in terms of representation on screen and all that kind of stuff. Can't wait to see how that pans out.
It's a stupid idea anyway, because you're not supposed to be representing our world, you're supposed to be representing Tolkien's world. And so if you're representing our world, by definition, what you've made is crap. Like,
that would be boring as shit. Why would we do that?
Yeah, well, the whole idea of fantasy is to go to another world where things are different. And he's like, oh yeah, we're just going to do everything the same as we've got here. It's like, well, if I wanted to live my own life, yeah, you could just put a camera on me and I'll watch that back 24 hours a day. It's like
the problem they have.
Gotta reflect modern society, Disper. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, this is the problem, because it's getting seen by people in our world. It has to reflect them, because otherwise they might get offended if they feel left out, and so everyone has to be included.
That's why we need Jack Black in it, okay? And he needs to go, whoa, look at me, I'm Jack Black. That's what needs to happen.
I want to see Lizzo as the Queen of Gondor in any remake. Any TV, anything going forwards, yeah, we've got to have that in it. Yeah, I mean, it was a wholesale rejection, and they've got to do 4 more seasons of this. So,
God, that's provisional. Like that's aspirational. Like they're not actually.
As far as I know, that was what they were. Yeah, when they got the rights, they said we're going to make 5 seasons. And look, from what that article said, if the article literally said they gave a Peripheral a second season, and the first season cost $175 million. They gave them a second season because they were too scared to tell the original people no, because they would lose too much political capital when they're working on a Fallout 4 season. Like, this is the head of your company is scared to not renew something when they're working for you elsewhere. Like, you can't have someone like that as the top of your company. These people have to be cutthroat. They have to. This was awful. I'm not doing it. No. And everyone else has to respect them. But if you're weak and you're just like that, they'll take advantage of you. It's not a way to run a company.
But they'll bankrupt if they do 4 or 5 seasons. With
it's Amazon.
Diminishing returns in the ratings. They'll have to slash the budget, which will make the thing excruciating to watch. And was one of the only draws that they had in the first place was how lush and lavish it was going to look. So, geez, how are they going to get out of this?
It didn't even look good though, and there was never a scene where I thought, "Damn, you can tell they spent money on this." Like the whole thing was just generic, standard fantasy looking stuff. You know, there was
3D printed armor that didn't even go down the sides of the. Where would you have found that in the Lord of the Rings movies?
Well, look at the crowds that when someone has to give a big rallying speech to a crowd of people, and they've literally taken like a dozen extras and copy pasted them to the point where people could just pick them out and see where the same person's been duplicated. Like what? You couldn't hire like 200 extras for the day? to do that? Like, where did your budget go? What the fuck did you spend all this money on? Who knows?
I mean, just putting Peter Jackson and getting a helicopter to do landscape shots of my country. That was the lush, beautiful thing that everyone thought was spectacular to look at.
Yeah,
That's just a helicopter with a camera.
Yeah.
It cost $1 billion.
One of the things that I thought really showed season 1 was the behind the scenes stuff. Because in behind the scenes, you expect something a bit deeper. You want to know why the director made this decision, why the scriptwriters made this decision, what was behind this kind of thing. And we had the directors not able to give any depth what they were doing at all. They gave very basic answers. There was no deeper reasoning. It was just, it felt like somebody who turns up for minimum wage, just doing the job, and I just want to leave. There was no deeper thought. It's like, I did whatever I was told, and that's it, I'm off. And you can't do that with Tolkien, someone that literally made an entire universe that you're supposed to, like, there's messages in it that you're supposed to be representing, and it felt like they just saw it as a day job, I want to get paid and leave. And I think when you take this kind of stuff, you have to treat it not only with the respect that you think it deserves, but that everyone else does. And so you can't do this stuff you can't just hire anybody for it. You can't hire a no-name person. And in the article, I think it said that Amazon isn't really respected by people. And so they're willing to overpay for what they see as talent. They just want whatever's hot, and they will pay whatever money they need to try and bake some kind of respect. But the people that they don't respect, they will just completely rule with an iron fist and take control of everybody. And that's what they've got with Rings of Power. They've got 2 people that have been in Hollywood for 10 years, haven't even got any credits on writing anything. And so they could completely dominate them and force them to their will. And it's not the people for this. You needed some top talent that was actually willing to stand up to people and take this more as much as I take the piss out of, I'm making art. You needed somebody that felt that kind of way and felt there was something deeper to this work than just, I tilted the camera a bit and that showed something different.
Well, they cut so many of those people out. Like, they had Tom Shippey, who was like your expert on all things Tolkien,
Exactly.
and they made sure to fire him because it's like he was telling them and pointing out how their show was absolute garbage and it didn't like match up with anything in the lore. They're like, cool, well, objections, we'll get rid of you. No, no more problems. That's the mentality, and well, look what you end up with.
With The Last Jedi, it was frustrating in the way it depicted masculinity. And it felt like kind of like a one-off, but The Rings of Power was the first thing where I felt a conscious depowering negativity, a strange absence, weird almost, throughout that entire thing. That was incredibly jarring. And that's the one thing that stuck with me above everything else.
You're just jealous you don't have a Tempest in you.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny, like Galadriel, like one of the pretty popular characters from the original trilogy, just became this figure of absolute mockery and derision in the show. Just like,
Yeah, but
they made her so cringe.
Yeah.
People didn't dislike Galadriel because she wasn't, like, Galadriel was powerful in the original stuff, but she was a powerful feminine character, and in Rings of Power she was a powerful masculine character. She was riding into battle on the backs of on a horse, like clad in armor, leading battles from everything, and it wasn't like that in the original movie. And I think Hollywood as a whole have completely lost the ability to separate the two. I actually don't think they genuinely even understand what a powerful woman would actually look like. They just see, I can beat you with a sword, and think that's what everybody needs to be. If I'm not physically stronger than you, there's nothing else. It's like they've lost any sense of depth beneath just physical world.
Right. Can't argue with that.
Can't even add to that, really. This
Yeah, we're all like quiet. It's like,
I mean, I can
like,
continue.
yeah.
Like, talk about Jennifer Salke if you want, because as the person that destroyed Rings of Power, as the person that destroyed Wheel of Time, like, this article for me was astronomical. You actually have people from other shows, like other companies coming in to insult her. And Air, like, there was one guy who said, I think somebody else would have matched the Air deal. I'm like, really? She paid $165 million, according to this, for Air, whereas it made something like 3-point-something million domestic on its opening weekend. There's no way that's going to make its money back at all. It can't. but she wanted it because it's hot. And people are coming to Amazon, no idea what Amazon like. They don't know. And so Jennifer Salke comes out and we make shows for everybody. Like, okay, but how is that helping people trying to pitch you shows? What is your audience? What are you trying to make? Do you like story shows? Or do you want family shows? Like, no, we just want everything. And they've got other people, I think, what was it, Vernon Sanders is also in here. And it's like, nobody knows what he wants. It's like, I'll just tell you. And apparently you come across as very enthusiastic about something, and then they never hear back from you. All of it seems like not only not a way to run a company, but you're not really helping people provide you the quality content that you're after. You're not providing any kind of direction for it. And when it gets down to how deals are made, how money's made, even down to the desks, the executives don't actually even get a desk at Amazon Studios. They're just supposed to hot seat around like any kind of person. They don't get an office. They don't get a desk. Just whatever. That's not Hollywood, where you're supposed to respect these people. You want to actually attract talent, and you're not providing them anything. You're providing them stock. So nobody wants to take any risk because they've all got to maintain their stock so they can sell it in the end, rather than just getting paid and maybe challenge something, push the boat out. There's a reason why Netflix is absolutely dominating any kind of chart you look at, because they're not run like Amazon.
And she's just unfireable, presumably, as well. She's like the Kathleen Kennedy of Amazon. Like, she's just too big to get rid of. Would look too bad optically.
The only interesting metric there'll be for Rings of Power Season 2 will be to see if the trailers get ratioed even worse than the trailers for the first season.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much fan antagonism towards it now. It's like you can't win people back from this. It's just, it's too deep of a hole that they've done.
You know, Drinker, at that point, if you're on the team for trying to recover from it, you should be like, fuck it. Just spin out all the articles about how they hate women. What else have we got? Like, we're done. We've lost.
Reboot it. I don't know. Like, just start again.